I recently did a shop tour of this new space that I am in, inside of which I have a ton of different lasers. And more recently, I've been able to put together this studio space that I'm sitting in right now. And even though we have fun props inside of here, it still is missing something, some type of identity to really make it feel like its own. We really need some type of signage. Now, you may not be trying to make a sign for some nerdy room like I am, but there's a really good chance if you're into lasers and CNCs, a lot of the work you might be getting is making signs for other companies. And one of the hardest parts about that is just figuring out what the design could actually look like. So in this video, we're gonna go from complete blank slate and then use a really cool piece of software and then come up with a final design that we can use in the backdrop at the end. All right, let's jump into it. Okay, so now we need to figure out how to actually make a logo. And that brings us to the service called Kittl. Now, Kittl's actually sponsored this entire video, but I really don't do these like full sponsored videos unless I really think the service is useful. And in this case, it really is, because one of the hardest things you might be running into, especially if you're doing client work or work for other people, is just figuring out how to actually make the design, especially if they're coming to you wanting to design it from the get-go. So we're gonna jump into it right now. You can see they actually have a bunch of different options and templates, and this is really what I like the most about it. And they kind of break it down into logos, labels, t-shirts, posters. But in my case, I actually want to make a logo. So I'm gonna hit over to logo, and you're gonna see there are a bunch of different options. Now, because I'm a nerd, I needed a nerdy name for my shop, and that is going to be Starforge Automation, which is really a play on a bunch of different things, primarily being industrial automation, which is actually the fictional company from Star Wars that made droids like R2-D2. But I added Starforge because I kind of like the forge and the blacksmithing and all that kind of stuff. I thought that would be fun. And actually, I already like this like aerospace logo that's right here. And so I'm going to use this design. Now, Kittl does a good job of making things pretty simple, but also giving you a lot of power. So if you've ever used photo editing programs in the past, you might be familiar with the idea of layers. So you can see down here at the bottom right, we have a bunch of different layers that you can turn on and off. So there's a texture on top of this. I'm going to delete it because we're gonna wanna get a vector image out of this. And you can see our background and then all of our text is in there as well. A couple things they do really well also is if you want to just play around with the colors, instead of having to click into each of the individual elements and playing around with them right here, you can just control it from a project level, which is really handy. So I know I want this to be basically a black and white logo. So I just need to make one of them black and then one of them white. And actually I'm gonna do it the other way, just because it'll look cooler. And then they also give you a bunch of different color palettes if color isn't your thing. And then from there, it's pretty much like anything that you would edit. You're just clicking individually into these. And I'm gonna change the logo because this one I saw earlier, but I'm gonna need to make it smaller so it actually fits. And then I wanna increase the line spacing. I'm just gonna make that 0. And I'm also gonna change the font on this as well. And we're gonna make this guy bigger. Now you can scale it just like this. This is going to make the text bigger and smaller. But then you can also scale the text over here as well. And then I want all of these things to line up. So I'm just gonna select them all. And then have like your normal alignment controls up here once you have them selected. This also does a really good job of letting you group objects together. So I'm gonna select everything and then hit Command G. And then once I group it, you can see it gets dropped into a new group right here, which is just like a folder in your layer panel down here at the bottom. And there's actually a good bit of stuff that you can do on the straight free plan. So you can do a bunch of these designs and play around with it. But since I want to download it, I'm gonna need to get a vector. So being able to do an SVG is something you're actually gonna need to use the paid plan for. Now, I actually already did a few other versions of this. You can see there's kind of 3 different logos that I'm working with. And I actually put it to you guys to vote on the one that you like. And I come over to the community, you can see that actually that one that I was working on was the one that you guys picked. Now, some other cool things about Kittl that I definitely have been playing around with that don't really apply on like the logos, but if you're having to do like packaging and branding, they have a really cool option, especially for like labels and posters. You can see you have some really in-depth designs that you can start from, especially some of these like super old-timey-ish designs. Now, something else I definitely find that I run into a lot is say that you have a picture and you want to remove the background. So I'm going to pull a picture, one and only Jimmy DiResta. And let's say we wanted to actually remove the background of him. You can use this really cool AI background remover. It definitely takes a minute, but compared to having to manually do that, that takes a while. And they'll say, I wanted to go in and add in some text. It even gives you some good options just for starting points of text. So it's not just a straight text. You can see you have some cool badges decorated. We're gonna go with some of these vintage guys. And so this guy, we're gonna rest, and you have some crazy stuff like that. So while this is sponsored, Kittl really does give you some pretty nice power to be able to do graphics and design stuff for anything that you are working on. And then I especially love the fact they give you a lot of really good starting points with templates that you can go straight in and start editing. And plus some of these cool AI tools that we're just starting to see, especially that AI background remover, is super helpful anytime you're dealing with pictures that people send you that you're trying to put into an overall design. Now at this point, we're just gonna bring our design into Lightburn. So I'm just gonna drag in my SVG and you can see that it brought it in. It also brought in the background. So I'm going to delete that since I don't need it. But then you can see I've got my other elements in there as well. So I'm actually gonna use my 60-watt laser from OhmTech. I'm actually using this 1/4-inch black acrylic to do the letters. And I'm going to cut those out first. And then all of it is going to get mounted on this 1/4-inch basswood. This is just some scraps I had around my shop. Now, if you guys are doing signs, one thing that I have found that is really helpful, whatever your backer material is going to be, get it whatever color you want it. In my case, I just left it the color of the natural wood, then actually put that onto my laser and then did a light engrave of the outline of all the letters, just so I knew where all the letters were actually going to go. Once I had that, then I came back and did that oval cut that then cut out the entire sign. So since I had that really light outline, I was able to go back and line all the letters up exactly where they needed to go. This is a pretty simple sign for me, so I'm just using some super glue and then gluing in all the letters. All of that winds up giving me this signs, Starforge automation. Now we really like doing these raised signs just because I feel like it gets a cooler effect. And then we wind up getting something like that. And since the Mandalorian has started back, we've got good old baby Yoda hanging out. Now there is a link right down below if you guys want to check out Kittl and play around with making logos or other cool designs yourself. And once you make your design, your next step is going to cut it out. And if you need any help in making a decision on what laser you need to get, I've done a full breakdown of all the different options that are out there. And we're gonna jump into that right now. And until next time, go make or break something in your shop. See you guys.